The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey guys, welcome to today's session. Going to be talking about ServiceWise and how we can manage tickets within ServiceWise. Before we begin, just want to let you know that you can ask your questions in the webinar panel, and I'll try to answer them towards the end. We'll give it 2 more minutes or so before I start. Just waiting for everyone to join. Alrighty, it looks like everybody's here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Let's make sure I get the right screen. Yep. Okay, so again, we're talking about how to manage tickets within ServiceWise today. And the first thing I wanted to show you all was the workflow. So within ServiceWise, you can have all of these different processes set up, but in order to manage tickets within them, whether it's help desk, whether it's change management, any other processes that you may have, very first thing we want to do is set up a workflow. So this is the workflow design. It's something that's out of the box, pretty straightforward. I'm sure everybody's familiar with this process. Essentially, we have a triage state. Right off the bat, new tickets will come in here. This state right here is just a starting point. For visually, it doesn't represent anything. But anyway, new tickets will come into triage. Then, as you're working through them or you're signing them out to the techs, you can move those tickets to in progress. And let's say they needed help with that or assistance, we can escalate that to a different team or to level 2 support and whatnot. And if there's any kind of change that's needed, whether it's in software or hardware, we can add a state for change management. And then finally, when we resolve the ticket, as a best practice, I don't go ahead and close the tickets right away. I want to make sure my users verify the resolution before we close it. So during the triage state, we can drop tickets if we feel like they're duplicates. If we feel like they resolved the issue already on their own and whatnot, we can go ahead and drop them. We can add a state by right-clicking. We can say add a state, and I'm just going to create an on hold state. All right, and that's basically going to be a state, a placeholder where maybe I need more information from the end user. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say need more info. Okay, and then I'm just going to draw a line straight to it, and that's our transition to on hold. And then I'm going to draw another line back to triage. Something like receive the information that I need to proceed. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just draw a straight arrow back. I can adjust this around and whatnot. All right, so that's the very first thing that you want to make sure you have, the workflow that works for you. This is just out of the box. This is just a sample that I have. I'm gonna go ahead and reload that. And so anything you do within the admin, you just want to make sure you click off the page and then go ahead and reload, and those settings get carried over in real time. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and going back to it, everything's ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to begin by setting up or creating a ticket. So there's a couple of different ways we can create tickets, whether it's using the end user portal, using email auto submission, or even simply creating a ticket through a phone call. You're talking to a tech, they can create a ticket for you within the internal portal. So I'm going to be creating one outside from the end user portal. And I'm going to log in as my sample user here. Okay. And when I come in here, we have all of our different requests here. So let's just say, this particular person has a issue with something. Okay. So I'm going to say, maybe issue with my laptop, something like that, something common. They're going to go ahead and put in a description, and then maybe set up or choose the right category, right? And then the right subcategory. So that you have parent-child relationships between the fields here. Okay, so we're gonna have videos on how you can configure all of this stuff here. Then over here on the right-hand side, these two guys are pretty important. So I have my impact and my urgency. Impact being, how many users does it affect? So I made it pretty descriptive here. I have low for a single user, maybe a small group of users, or maybe a call center. Okay, so that's, how many people it's affecting. And then, how critical is this, right? So is it something that's just not available? Or something that's just not working. So in this particular case, it affects one user, and their laptop is not functioning properly. Okay, and the reason I set this up is generally we don't want our users to randomly pick a priority. So sure, I could have added the priority field within this ticket, but as most of you probably experience, when people are submitting tickets, they're usually going to put high priority on everything, right? And that makes it harder for the team to actually determine which ticket needs to be done first. So I have something a little bit more descriptive, a best practice, a priority matrix. So I'm going to go into the admin and kind of show you how to set that up real fast. So these are parent-child relationships. So all I have to do is go into the admin here, and I'm going to go into my ticket view, go into my description page, and find those fields. So I have actually a priority field here, but it's hidden for my end users. I'm not letting them pick a priority, but I just want them to go ahead and pick the right urgency and impact, and then we'll automatically determine the priority from them. Okay, so I double click on the priority field, and on the right hand side I have parent. I want to make sure I set two parents here. Okay, and then I click on that button, set up relationship. So, these are the values for the priority down here, right? And by default, you'll notice I put everything as low. But these are, the first field I want to determine the priority from is impact, and the second one's urgency. And down here, I get this matrix, right? So between, high and urgent, what exactly would be the priority? And I set that as critical. Okay, so this is the priority matrix right there. Similarly, for classification of tickets, you want to set up parent-child relationships as well. It's the same concept, except it only has one parent instead of two. So certain fields are able to do this, set two parents, okay, and priority being one of those. Then if I go into, category and subcategory, these guys also are dependent, on each other. Actually, I'm sorry, the subcategory is dependent on the category. So you want to make sure you classify this correctly, for better reporting and whatnot. So we have the category being the parent. So I double click on the subcategory. You'll see that the category is parent. And then we're able to say, okay, here are the parent values. When it's applications, what should my subcategory choices be? So I have, these following items selected. Okay, so it's just parent-child relationships between these fields. So that's one thing that we want to do within the system. All right, so next I'm going to go look at this ticket here. Okay, so right away, I'm going to go into the incident list. I'm making sure I'm inside incident management, inside my help desk system, inside the service desk, and I'm going to go ahead and sort it by the ticket ID here, so I see, what's there, the latest. I'm going to go ahead and select all members there. just to make sure, I'm looking at all tickets that everybody's working on. So again, I'm going to click on that, and hopefully that comes out. Actually, did I submit? I'm sorry, I didn't submit that. So I'm going to go ahead and submit, uh, and then now we're going to come back, look at this real quick, and I should see, 1736 issue with my laptop. All right, when I click into it, the buttons that you see up on the top, start, work, and drop, those are my transition lines that are in my workflow. So when I go to the workflow, I have triage. So everything comes into triage. I have my drop and I have my start work. Apparently, I didn't get my on hold. I probably have to refresh the system one more time. But anyway, those would be the transition lines that you will see above. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this too. So the urgency, the impact is right there, and then my priority is low. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and save that. Typically, that would be automatically selected, but I got some issues with my system right now. But anyway, we have a low priority, and that's the only choice that I'm going to be able to get because of the following items, right? So now a tech has the opportunity to go ahead and change this to something else. So let's just say, well, it's a ticket that actually is going to affect a lot of people, right? So then now you can see my priority automatically adjusts to critical, right? So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go back into my ticket list view. Okay, so I'm going to actually expand this column a little bit. There's going to be a couple of visual indicators here that you'll see. So one being the flag column and the other being this color right here. So inside ServiceWise, you can actually specify the color, the font size, the weight of the font, depending on some kind of field. So mine is against the priority field. So anything that's critical is going to appear in red for me, and that's a way for me to easily see critical issues. And of course, I can filter by that column, the priority column as well. The flag column, basically, on a daily basis, I can come in and hopefully you don't see this many flags, but essentially these are things that need somebody's attention, right? Whether it's new tickets, whether there's a web conversation that has been submitted. So say this person comes in here and sends you a message and you want to respond to them, that will actually change this icon into a flag icon. So you can actually work through your tickets this way. Just look at, whichever, tickets have an icon, or based on the priority, right? So I can go ahead and look at that, and I see all these critical tickets, and these are usually the items I'm going to do first, right? But in a situation where, I have all of these critical tickets, then I'm going to be overwhelmed and I'm not going to know which tickets to do first, right? So I'm going to go back into this guy issue with my laptop, and I'm going to go to the status page here. Okay. In the status page, you'll see that I have you'll see that I have the support plan here and the response time, and this is my SLA essentially. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that. And this is based on priority, but it could be based on any other field too. It's just natural to base your SLAs according to the priority field, but it could be against any other field or a combination of fields within ServiceWise. So looking at this right here, I have my SLA for critical, and it really just tells me that, hey, my response time needs to be within an hour. My resolve time needs to be within 8 hours. Okay, so now I have SLA here, and I'm going to show you in the admin where I go to do that. I'm going to go down. There's a SLA section here. And before I do that, I think SLA is one of those optional features if you're not using right now. Under general project settings, optional features, I think we can turn on SLAs within here. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize that, go into service level agreement. Then I'm going to go ahead into the SLA templates right here. So all of these other SLAs are for different projects, but I just want to make sure it's for at least for my service desk. So I have my standard support here. And first thing I want to do is define, you know, basically duration of this. So right here is just, I'm saying it's every day this SLA can apply. And then I'm going to go to this auto apply. Well, actually, before I go there, I'm going to go to this response time. And this is how I can set up the response time for different priority. So this SLA is tied to the priority field. And basically, I've set these 4 choices, right, from low to critical, and I'm defining a response time and a resolve time for each of those. So you can kind of see For critical, it's 1 hour response, versus something that's low, it's 8 hours response. Okay, and then however many days this is for resolve. Okay. There's also one more thing that we can do. And so when I click on that, actually, when I go and edit that, you'll see that for my low priority items, and it's low, right? um, we can determine, what my support schedule is. So we can say, we can define a schedule so that it's only during working days and not, on weekends, right? So I set up a schedule. It's over here on the left-hand side. These are my two schedules that I can, that where this SLA can apply. So I'm saying it's, my working day schedule. And then right here for low priority, I'm basically defining a response time and a resolve time. There's also one more field that you're not seeing here. If I had enabled it, you would see it. But basically, that would be the restore time. So we have response time, resolve time, and then a third one called restore. That's something we would have to enable, within the admin as well. But this is where you would set that. Lastly, if I go to auto apply here, earlier, I don't know if you guys saw, but I went in here, I went to the status page, and I kind of manually picked this right here. But this auto apply would actually pick the right SLA um, based on my conditions. So essentially, um, if I had set this up right, let's go ahead and do a new one. I'm going to say new priority. Since I have something there, I'm just going to put something in there, priority test. And I'm going to find my priority field. I'm going to say, well, if priority is any of these choices, then this SLA right here, the standard support SLA, is going to apply against that ticket. Okay. All right. So that's how you would do it in the admin. Once you're finished, just go ahead and reload. If I come back into the ticket, I'm going to start working on it now. Or actually, I'm going to go back into the list view. And there's additional things that I could put in here. So back to that problem where I have, so many critical tickets, what do I do? That's where the SLA can come in handy. One thing you want to do first is you want to click on that settings icon and go to customize the list view. In the list view, you're going to get a couple different, or actually all of your fields that are available on tickets. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at, get those SLA fields in. So I'm going to go ahead and move that over to the right, and that's going to be displayed over in my list view. So I'm going to move it up just a little bit so we can see that. Okay, so I have my total remaining resolve time versus my total remaining response time. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then now I see that as a column, right? So now instead of, randomly checking flags or maybe, working through, 20 different critical tickets, I'm actually going to prioritize this list and work on things that are against my SLA, right? So I can sort these fields too. So I can do resolve time and then, kind of work my tickets with the SLA fields. Okay. So that's how you would manage your tickets that way. Now, I'm going to go ahead and sort it by the ID again so I can find the ticket that I had right here. It's showing my laptop. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now, one thing that I have enabled here too is basically some auto assignments. So you can kind of see all tickets that actually go into triage is going to be saved or assigned to my level 1 service desk. Okay, so that plus sign right there represents a group queue. Okay, so it's not to any individual, but rather it's sitting in a queue where, maybe a lead can actually grab tickets and assign to individuals, or individuals can go in from that queue and kind of pick tickets out themselves. So assuming I was a lead, that I can then go ahead and assign, forward this ticket, right, to anybody else or any of these individuals. Okay, so there's some auto assignment happening here. And there's a couple ways to do that, the auto assignment. First way is through the templates. So I'm going to go into settings. I'm going to go into tool settings here under the ticket template. And I think, when I submitted a trouble ticket earlier by the end user, it's this one right here. I'm going to edit and I can say assign to level 1 service desk. Okay, and you can kind of see some fields pre-populated for me. So that's through the use of the templates right here. So if I do ticket, home, submit a trouble ticket, it's essentially based off of that template. Okay, second thing I can do is under the workflow settings right here, I can say the owners, right? So under triage right here, say I wasn't using any templates, And in a situation like that, it would be something like where a phone call comes in, then a tech is submitting a new ticket, not using any templates. They're going to have to pick out all these different things, right? So the ownership you can set right here. You can say level one by default is going to get that. Okay, so I just have to support applicable owners, and I can go ahead and select that group, level one service desk, and then basically boom, right here my defaults are always going to be level one service desk for that particular status, regardless if I use templates or not. Okay, so that's how you would do the auto assignment that I have there. All right, so that's one way to manage your ticket. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, come back to the ticket. I'm going to forward it off to an individual now, and there's a little bit of resource management. So I'm going to pick the guy that has the least number of tickets, and that'd be Mikkel. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save. And now, I can work through my issue here, right? So as I'm moving through the workflow, I can escalate it to somebody else. I can resolve the ticket right now, or I can request for a change. Request for a change will basically submit another ticket inside a completely different process. So if I do that, a new ticket will be created in change management, and it'll be linked to this particular help desk ticket. Okay, so I have some automation going on. I'll demonstrate that in a different webinar, but right now I'm just going to go ahead and escalate to level 2. Now, going back to these owners as well, so you'll see that I have a telecom support group there, now in infrastructure support. So I don't really have, just one group, but there's also these different groups for different types of issues, right? So the last way to do this would be under the auto assignment feature. So if I go to advanced project settings here, I have auto routing, right? And then I can set up my auto routing criteria. Okay, so for telecom issues, I'm going to go ahead and pick that category, or pick whatever field telecom is in, right? And then let's just say it's one of these right here. I'm going to pick that. Then I'm going to say, well, any tickets that have those values filled out, it's going to go to telecom support. Okay, so that's how you can do auto assignment of things. Okay, so any telecom tickets goes to telecom support. All right, so now I'm just doing a manual process, and I'm essentially just going to work through this ticket, and I could put in a work description right here. That's essentially just an internal note for the next person, or just a history of what has been done against this ticket. Um, I'm just going to put something right there, and I'm going to go ahead and save. So that's just basically the internal description. The end user is not able to see that. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and resolve the ticket, um, and keep the same ownership, and then just go ahead and submit. Okay. So that's how you would actually work through a ticket and how you can manage these tickets. So this one essentially is resolve notify sitting in this state. So from here, what I can do is I can send out notifications to my users. Actually, as a matter of fact, we can, there's always going to be notifications that you can set up behind the scenes for whatever you do. So whether you change statuses, whether you forward it to a different individual, you can always set up notifications, for the correct recipient. One thing I wanted to show you here is I'm actually going to go into my mail system here, right? And then let's go ahead and go into this demo account. So one thing that we can do here is in the resolve state, right? What I can do is I can actually send something like this to the requester, or to the end user who's having the issue, right? So in this example, this is just for another ticket, but um, in this example, basically what they will get is an email that has these links, right? Approve or reject. So instead of or there's multiple ways to ask them to confirm whether or not this ticket has been resolved. But one of the ways is just simply send them an email with these links, right? So hey, resolved or not, right? So they can click on that, and essentially what that's gonna do is it's gonna update the status here, right? So let's just say they clicked on, hey, it's resolved, and it's going to automatically close that ticket. So the tech doesn't have to worry about, manually closing it. Or if they hit, hey, it's not resolved, then it's going to maybe go back to in progress. Okay, so you can set up that automation there. Um, Lastly, you can use the email escalations to close tickets as well. So we're going to go into task management, actually advanced project settings, and we're going to use ticket escalation. Okay, so what ticket escalation does is it's going to perform some kind of action depending on, time, right? So over here, I got a couple different rules, but on the trigger, I'm going to say something like open too long or no progress, something like that, right? So we can do maybe open too long. So the resolve state is actually considered open. It's not a closed state. So we can say, hey, if sitting in that particular state, the condition would be, I'm going to go ahead and do resolved open, right? So that's the condition. And I'm going to select, status right here. Let's see, so where is status? That's not current state right here. And I'm going to say if any tickets are sitting in the resolve notify state for too long, right? Whoops, and I'm going to go ahead and select that. Then what are my actions? So I'm going to go ahead and, edit that action. I could send an email, and this defines, what open too long means, right? So it could be open for, 2 weeks, 1 week, what have you. And then I can say, I could do reassignment. So I can say, um, go ahead and just close this ticket out. Since that user, we're assuming after 2 weeks, if they haven't said anything, then hey, this ticket should be closed. Okay, so there's some automation that can happen, using this escalation engine, or you simply send them an email, and then let them, go ahead and say it's resolved or not. Okay, so that's it for this particular session. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the panel. And I think we have a couple of different questions. Let me go ahead and click on that. Okay, so all right. Okay, one of the questions I got from Chris was for this font color change, is that something I can configure for just myself or something I can set that uses that site? Okay, so the font color thing that I showed you earlier for critical essentially is going to be defined for everybody. Unfortunately, it's not going to be per individual. So if you turn that on, it's going to be for everybody. Just to real quickly, hopefully I know where to set that up, but it might be under tickets right here, I think under general settings. Uh, okay, I'll get back to you. I kind of forgot where it is, but I will get back to you guys on that. Um, but that's one of the questions. Yeah, so it's for everybody, Chris. Um, okay. Another question is how do I set up the approval emails? Okay, so that is going to be a little bit lengthy. I'll save that for our recording. Where we can set up this guy right here. Save that for our recording. I'll send out a recorded video for this afterwards. Okay. And we got a couple additional questions. All right, let's see. So, okay. Just looking real quickly, just browsing through these questions. Most of the questions that are being asked here are kind of lengthy, so I'll address them, individually. I'll reach out to you guys one-on-one, and that's something you could do too. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or the support team, and we can, set up, a session just with you. Okay, so at the end of the, this webinar, we're going to send out a couple different recordings to this. Let's see what else. Okay, yeah, that's it for today's session. Thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you next time.